Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Jitsi Community Call. Hi, Yana. Um, okay, let's get started with a brief update. Um, so we there's plenty of things going on, but only a few are actually coming together right now. So I'm going to so this is going to be brief. We started experimentally using the new bridge on one of our Jitsi shards. Um, so far, that's looking good. Brian George, would you like to add anything there of note, or are we good?
No, I don't think so. I just would throw out that the long delay wasn't because we had a bunch of known issues necessarily. We just got a bit caught up with other things. So we're finally getting around to continuing kind of the process here to get this verified, to get fully deployed and fully considered stable. And we started that last week. And yeah, we'll be moving forward with that.
Which is very exciting because that effort has been coming for more than a year actually now. So we're all very excited to have it so close to full maturity. Also, uh, the team is currently working on trying to extend the number of participants that can be in a single call. Um, so that would include other methods for using Octo beyond just geographical distribution, but also to spread people across multiple bridges. So that's something that you should expect updates on in the following community calls. Another piece that is coming together right now is private messaging, which I believe Zoe just submitted a PR for. Uh, it is one of those things where we felt the use case isn't the most compelling one, but it kept coming up from users, specifically for things like, um, you know, hey, you're loud. Hey, you're not loud enough. Uh, and I suppose in some cases, hey, that meeting is really boring. We should probably not come next time. So that PR is just there right now, and it'll probably be approved shortly. We have a new version of Jitsi Meet that hit the iOS store as well. So that's cool too. And I'm trying to think of any other major changes. If anyone from the team wants to help me out, anyone wants to add an update.
We now support Node 12 and Electron 5.6
Oh yeah,
for
that's a
Jitsi
good
Meet
point.
Electron use.
That is indeed a good point. Uh, Anyone else?
I have not yet completed my work on open sourcing the ModMuck domain mapper and associated documentation. That is still my intention, but it's not yet done. So anyone in the community that's noticed that we promised this last call and it hasn't happened, it still hasn't happened, but is still in process. So keep an eye out for that as well.
Thank you for the update. Anyone else? Because if not,
I
go
guess I
ahead,
can
Sol.
say that I have a work in progress pull request that I'll probably land this week, which adds experimental support for Spot to the Docker setup for those who want to quickly try it out. It's fully integrated, so it will just work with your own deployment out of the box. Maybe by next call, it should be in there, so we can throw in some more details.
And so where would that would rely on TV site access to calendars, right?
Come again, sorry?
That would rely on TV site access to calendars, specifically Google and Microsoft. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Client-side calendar support.
All right. Thank you for the update. Anything else?
Other than the mobile, so other than the iOS app release, we also released Android, and we also released the SDKs. So we now have 2.3 point something on each of both platforms. They bumped the really React Native version, the WebRTC version, so they're substantial updates. It is especially substantial on Android, where the audio subsystem has changed, and now we get much better echo cancellation, at least on Android. So if anybody is using the SDKs, note that updates are available and they should be pretty good. End of
I also wanted
translation.
to, actually, I just realized that we're also working on adding better Etherpad support. We're adding Etherpad support to mobile as well, which is what So is currently working on. And we're probably going to use it to try and make sure that it's usable for things like adding server-side transcriptions and things like that. Also, Jonathan is working on making the bandwidth estimation process, the bandwidth estimation part of the code pluggable, and he's nearly done with that. And we shall then potentially experiment with some improvements over there. And also, Jaya is working on simultaneously sending desktop and video. Now, in this first version, we opted for a combined send as a single stream. So the client will be mixing the two video streams locally and sending them up as a single video stream. We figured that that's probably best because the presenter best knows whether they want their image on top of their slides, where exactly they want it, and how. So we're going in that direction, and we'll see how that unfolds. Okay, I'm thinking of closing the updates here. Does anyone want to add any last thoughts from the team? Okay. Opening the microphone to questions and comments from the community.
Hey.
Hi, Paul.
Hi. How's it going?
Pretty well, thank you. How are you?
Good. So I had a couple quick questions related to Opus. So we're trying to make some tweaks to Opus on the front end. Does anybody know if it's possible to set the Opus sampling rate to be 16 kilohertz? It's a little confusing because my understanding is Opus sort of always runs at 48 kilohertz. I get the frame rate somehow, but it will support, I guess, like a lower sampling rate or maybe and I saw in the old libjitsi meet, it looked like there were different bandwidth settings, which I believe corresponds to that. But I don't know if sort of at the Jitsi meet level, if anybody has had any experience playing with the changing the Opus sampling rate. So mostly for the purpose of reducing bandwidth and getting the sampling rate down to about 16 kilohertz.
So I'm not aware of such a setting. As far as I understand, it should self-adjust, and when lower level changes were needed, for example, Signal changes this in the WebRTC source code to enable constant bitrate, which to this day I think there's no setting to do it in the JavaScript side. So
right, but the Opus encoder, I believe, does support it. Actually, I agree with you. It's not possible in JavaScript.
Yeah,
but I think the encoder did have that option.
Right.
Yes, it did. It does, but unless you're doing your own custom Electron build, let's say, I don't think you can control it from the JS side, at least today, as far as I know.
Not even as like a constraint, like a media constraint.
There was something around. I think by default, it does a lower. I don't think you can reduce it. but I think in specifying stereo, Boris had found that at some point. I think by specifying stereo, you could make it 48 kilohertz and stereo, and I think by default it was like closer to 30 or something. I don't think you can make it lower from there though.
Interesting.
Maybe you can play by specifying a maximum bit rate in the SDP for Opus, and maybe that would force it to something lower.
That's what I was wondering, if maybe you could do it even on the server side, setting the SDP constraint to be, not being able to support more than whatever the medium bandwidth Opus setting is, and then maybe that would then on the client side, it would follow suit, if that's possible. Is that worth a shot, or is that too crazy?
Well, it sounds like an easy thing to try, but it would probably. Who knows how it's going to adjust? It might actually adjust by other, like the sampling rate is probably just one of the levers that it can pull, and I'm not even sure that it would pull that one first. So
I wonder though.
Yeah, generally, in my experience, the Opus encoder will, try to do, it's whether it does sampling rate or something else, it tries to give you, if you specify a bandwidth that tries to give you the best audio it can fit in that bandwidth, whether, whether it's squeezing into the bandwidth by throwing away higher frequency components, as in sampling rate or something else, you don't really care at some level. So generally, I think the thing to do would be to just try tweaking whatever the bandwidth is set on the audio, and then let the Opus encoder figure out the best thing to do.
Okay,
but Paul, what are you trying to achieve actually? Are you specifically looking to get 16 kilohertz, or do you just want lower bandwidth?
Mostly just lower bandwidth.
Oh, well, then you should totally use the SDP setting. It would respect that, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. I'll give that a shot.
I wonder if another possibility is to, since you're going to cap the sampling rate, maybe it's not that much different to use in G722, which I believe it should be supported everywhere as well.
G722, as far as I remember, just does 64 kilobits per second, non-adjustable. And yes, Opus, even in its best quality, is lower than that.
Lower than that when it's over 16 kilohertz sampling rate?
Oh, yeah, totally. Even at 48 kilohertz, it's lower than 64 kilobits. Like, I remember at the time we were testing it, it would very rarely reach 40 kilobits with highest quality settings.
Yeah, there are others like ISAC, I guess, but then it's always quality versus quantity, I guess. But just the thought that there might be a lower codec that you can try. Emil is right in that if Opus did a good job, I haven't measured it in years, so I can't remember right now.
Okay, I mean, so the way. Sorry.
I was just going to say that I also know that the Opus developers have done a fair bit of work recently on increasing the low bandwidth performance. So assuming the browsers have incorporated the latest version of Opus, which hopefully they have, though I'm not positive, you should get better low bit rate performance than you would have in the early days of Opus.
That's good to know. I mean, the reason the reason for doing this is part of our persistence, like the recorder that we're doing in the new JVB2 architecture. And so we're, in terms of storing everything, we figured it'd be easier if we just kind of kept the bandwidth down from the beginning, sort of to reduce the overhead on the JVB side, reduce the bandwidth requirements on the client side to JVB, et cetera. And then I guess, I don't know if, similar to this is just on the Opus side, it seemed from what I've read about Opus itself that Opus kind of requires, it doesn't really stand alone, and so it needs either a wrap, like a container like RTP in terms of persisting it, or persisting it into something like MKV. I don't know if anybody's had any luck in terms of just storing out for just kind of the testing purposes for this recorder, just storing out Opus on its own. I feel like that just doesn't play. But yeah, it's kind of a. I think we'll probably figure that one out. But
Yeah, I think we stored it at some point. I think it's part of the transcription project. We were storing it or planning to store it in OGG. But no, it's obviously possible if you assume a bunch of parameters to store it as mere frames. In which case you'd be replacing the container. But yeah, I don't know how easy that would be to. Sorry, what's that?
But you said you stored it in Vorbis, is that or an OGG format?
I don't know if we implemented that or if we were planning to do it. It does support. I think there was support in FFmpeg. I think for I don't remember. Actually, Boris probably remembers the details if he's here. So we were planning to do it in OGG, but in Vorbis, but I don't know if we actually did it.
Yeah, but there's libraries on the Opus homepage about storing Opus in OGG files. So if you want, look, it's like called libopus file. If you want to, that seems to be their standard Opus storage format, and it should be relatively straightforward to move RTP into that.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot.
You can always store a PCAP.
That's probably that's interesting. That probably incurs a little bit of additional overhead, though, right? Because
Of course. I mean,
yeah.
If you were just planning to play with it.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. It's actually not that much overhead, right? It's just sort of, I mean, you have the sort of obviously the RTP, but also you know the actual frames of the sort of the network overhead. But that's interesting. It's certainly for testing. I mean, that's been actually really helpful. The all the PCAP related tests in the new JVB and Jitsi Media Transform, and it's really, really helpful. A really nice testing foundation to build on top of. So, thanks for doing that.
That's good to hear. Thanks for the feedback. All right. So, other questions or comments? Sounds like this is going to be a short one. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, and see you again in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Is on.